right, everybody. Welcome back to the Crypto 101 podcast. I'm your host, Bryce. Guys, I am very excited about this episode and this guest today. Live and in person at the Consensus Conference, Rune Christensen, the co-founder of MakerDAO. Rune, thanks for joining us today. And how the heck are you?
Glad to be here.
Enjoying the conference? Not melting in this heat yet?
Yeah, I think it's great. Like, there's really buzzing, and you can tell crypto's come a long way, I think, from just how exciting this conference is.
Totally. One of the things that I noticed was RWAs, real world assets, tokenization is the hot topic, period. Last year was NFTs, and the year before that's like all these new L1s. Now it's like real world adoption, and this is something that you've been doing since, you pretty much invented this. Like I don't know any other way to put it. You pretty much invented this sector. So how does it feel kind of like looking back at the founding of Maker, 2015, I believe, to now? There's been quite an evolution.
Yeah, it's been a pretty crazy journey.
It's been
we started out in crypto and it was just sort of, it wasn't even considered like a serious industry.
Right.
No one really believed it would ever become anything real. And then, now we're starting to see that there is this real potential in the technology. Mm-hmm. And I think in particular, stablecoins is really the thing that is sort of proving to be like a product that matters in the real world for people all over the world, right? There's billions of dollars of stablecoins in circulation that people are using to escape inflation and for transactions and trade. And of course we're the third biggest, right? We're one of them. Mm-hmm. The biggest decentralized stablecoin. So we work a bit differently than the others, and one of the strengths it gives us to be a decentralized stablecoin is that it means that we are very flexible in how we can sort of adapt and evolve the system. So as everything keeps advancing, we see more real assets, we see more innovation in the space. Maker and DAI can really tap into that and sort of try to unlock all the benefits that are available. Which is then also really what Endgame is all about, like really sort of putting in place this kind of ability to just incorporate all the best of crypto. And then, focusing on the most important thing that I think everyone's got to understand, like this is the key thing, right? We got to make it easy to use.
Amen.
We have to be able to distribute all of these advantages that clearly are there, but we have to get them out to real users in the real world.
And it has to be dead simple. And so for those who haven't heard about Maker, give us the high-level explanation and what the relationship between MKR and the DAI token.
Right. So, like I said, Maker is the third largest stablecoin project in the world. It's the largest decentralized stablecoin. It's one of the oldest crypto projects generally. So there's 5 billion DAI stablecoin in circulation, right? So this is a stablecoin, it's pegged to dollar. People use it for saving money, for transactions, for DeFi. It has a very unique feature that is only possible with a decentralized stablecoin, and that is it has a native yield. So right now you can get 8% on the DAI hold, and this is sort of built into the stablecoin itself. And it's being like
it's automatic.
It's automatic. It's like native, so you don't take additional risk accessing this yield. And there's billions of dollars taking advantage of it right now. Mm-hmm. It's available to people everywhere in the world, except people located in the US.
Thanks, Gary.
And
that will change.
Yeah, I think so. I think things are looking much more positive in terms of the uncertainty in the US for sure. So the yield and the stability of the DAI stablecoin comes from the collateral, right? So it's currently backed by things like real assets. We just talked about that. But then also things like DeFi loans, crypto loans, right? Crypto-backed loans, like Bitcoin-backed loans, Ethereum-backed loans. And Maker is sort of able to kind of tap into both kind of the traditional market and the crypto market and get wherever the yield is best. That's another really, that's this adaptability of Maker and DAI. And the MKR token ultimately is it represents sort of the overall control and the responsibility to sort of make all of these decisions and automate all of these systems so that the system provides the best possible yield and it remains above all else. It has to be secure, right? It has to maintain stability. It has to be able to scale without falling apart, right? And so that's the MKR token holder's role, is to sort of use governance to make decisions to basically keep it stable. And then in case there are losses in the system, those are actually borne by the MKR holder. So there is this skin in the game that align incentives and make it so that you can actually manage this kind of like a giant system like this purely through blockchain, right? In the end, it's a decentralized system. And yeah, I mean, that's basically the journey we've been on for the last almost 10 years, is to try to really make this work. And now we are doing sort of the final effort called Endgame to kind of finish it off and get to the final state where this stuff will be able to just scale to any size.
Yeah, I know. I'm really excited to dive into Endgame, but I want to talk about yield in the context of crypto and these real world assets. So where does this yield come from? And I remember back in the day, DAI was only backed by Ethereum, and then people started to tokenize real world assets. And can you just kind of talk about like where yield comes from in your system?
So I mean, so right now, and actually because it's on the blockchain, it's decentralized, you can go to makerburn.com and you can actually see this in real time, right? So you can see exactly what's backing DAI, where's the yield coming from. Right now, it's about 50-50 in terms of half of it comes from real assets, so mainly treasuries, but also also stuff like some real estate loans, basically. And then the other half is crypto-backed loans. So over-collateralized, so Bitcoin positions where people are borrowing against the Bitcoin, borrowing against Ethereum, staked Ethereum. Then now there's also this recent sort of trend, which is to use basically what's called the basis trade. So that's tapping into perps markets, which is this kind of advanced type of market that exists in crypto specifically, that pays a very high yield, but actually can provide very good safety and security still.
And that's is that with Athena?
Yeah, that's right. So
nice.
Currently we do this with Athena. Yeah.
Very cool. No, I'm very excited about all the different kinds of collateral types, and I think that as kind of Endgame rolls out, we'll go from $6 billion of DAI to 10 hopefully, and then 20, and I want to get into the Endgame because that's really the hot topic right now. So you mentioned this is the next step to get Maker more distributed, more easy to use, more cohesive. Tell us a little bit about why you decided to call it Endgame, and really where you think that this is going to take your business.
Right. So, I mean, so the reason why it's called Endgame is because it's not just the next step. It's supposed to be the final step,
okay,
right? To get us to a point where the ecosystem does not need more changes. It's just able to adapt on its own, and also generally, ideally, change as little. I mean, sort of not even change at all. But if change occurs, it should be as automatic as possible, right?
Okay.
And sort of
so it's like truly a final state.
Yeah, and you want that because if you have like a massive infrastructure running sort of critical financial systems, you don't want that to be able to change randomly, right? You want as much certainty and stability as possible. And also, if you're scaling something to a very large size, it's safer if the foundation isn't changing, right? But this is a major challenge because at the same time, we also have to grow this stuff, right? It's not like, there's no point in making something that's like super decentralized and very fancy and complicated, but then no one uses it. Like then it's just like a science project, right? It's not going to have a real impact. So Endgame, on one hand, is sort of needs to put in place all these like sort of final systems, final pieces of the protocol so that it doesn't have to change anymore.
Okay.
And that's all something that needs to happen on the back end, which is like it's really advanced, right? It's really it's not it's not easy. It's a difficult challenge to make a stablecoin really work at scale, right? At any scale. And then at the same time, to the user, it has to be easier than it's ever been. Like it has to go way beyond anything we're seeing currently in crypto, right? Because otherwise we're just going to be stuck in a crypto bubble, right? We need to make it the easiest place to use, where you can go to save your money, you can grow your money with the unique types of yield available in Endgame. And at the same time, on the back end, it just works, right? It's stable, it's secure, and it's able to sort of adapt to all these everything that happens in crypto in the real world.
Awesome. And Endgame's introducing something referred to as sub-DAOs. Can you kind of unpack that for us?
Yeah, so sub-DAOs are really the kind of the killer feature, the killer app, or you could say, of Endgame. So the foundation is we have to make an app, a money app, right? Where people can save and grow their money, and it's really, really secure, and it's really, really easy to use. Right? So that's kind of the first objective of putting that into place. Now we have a foundation where, okay, now there's a product that's like, it's got some potential. But sub-DAOs kind of add this really unique flavor to it, I guess you could say, this unique possibility that you can simply only do with blockchain. And what it is that sub-DAOs are basically like portions of the core Maker business model. So Maker is currently generating $300 million per year in revenue.
Wow.
So it's got a real business, right? It's got a track record, right? It's got this.
I don't think any other crypto token does that.
Yeah, well, I mean, I think there's some L1s, right, doing this, but
Yeah,
definitely
Solana.
it's the only like DAO. It's the only like decentralized organization generating this kind of income, right? And having this kind of like a real proven, reliable business model, right? And we're taking that business model and sort of taking slices of it, spinning them off into these sub-DAOs, which are basically kind of like decentralized startups, or something like that, right? Like sort of startups that then specialize in a particular business model so that they can have more flexibility, they can have more focus, and that way actually grow the business even further and sort of really push it to the limit in terms of the potential, right? The first sub-DAO is Spark. So that's the first sub-DAO coming. It's very hotly anticipated because, it hasn't even fully launched yet, but it already has a product called Sparkland, which has become already the 9th biggest DeFi project in the world, right? And so what's going to happen with Spark is as Endgame launches and we launch our new app, all of the new features that make it really easy to use, then on top of that, an extra option available for those who are like, yeah, yield is great, but I want something a little bit more exciting, right? Then the way that the Spark tokens, because every sub-DAO has its own unique token, right? So the Spark token is distributed through token farming, right? So what that means is all you have to do is you have to save with the app, and then you have the option to choose, I don't want my yield in cash. I want something more exciting. I want to actually get Spark tokens because I think Spark has potential and maybe it will grow a lot and there's a lot of upside.
And you'll get more, a higher percentage yield if you choose to get it in Spark as opposed to DAI?
Well, of course, the market sort of controls what the actual yield is, right? But
Sure.
Generally, it should trend towards giving a higher yield that is more variable, right?
Okay.
But the key thing is you're not taking more principal risk on your money when you use token farming with the Maker Endgame app, and this is really the key thing, right? Because this means that you can offer something to people that is really exciting, is really unique to just crypto, and it gives you that kind of crypto excitement, right? It has that fun to it, right? Where you can farm Spark if you're into cutting edge tech, but there will also be other sub-DAOs like focused on gaming, focused on financial inclusion. So whatever sort of your interest, your values, you can pick that and farm that sub-DAO that appeals to you, where you think the potential is there and it's going to grow and it's going to be worth it for you, right? And we can offer this experience to people, but without putting them in a position where they might risk losing the money, right? The principle is safe, just as safe as simply holding DAI, right? It's the same thing under the hood, and the only thing they're doing is getting a different form of yield. And this is something I really hope basically can grow crypto to a completely different audience, right? So people that are not interested in speculating, but on the other hand, just coming with it's a stable coin and it's a better banking solution or something, right? It works like a bank, but it's a little bit better. Like in the end, thinking about banking and saving money is kind of boring.
Yeah.
But if you add this token element to it and this idea of you can choose yourself, you can take some extra risk that doesn't impact your principal, right? You can make it more fun, right? More like a game, which is the way to adopt, to grow things and to get adoption, I think.
Is there potential for theoretically infinite sub-DAOs? And will the MakerDAO always exist, or will the MakerDAO kind of dissolve and these sub-DAOs will just kind of take its place?
Well, the relationship between the core and the sub-DAOs is like really is the essential sort of feature of Endgame, right? That puts in place this dynamic of fundamentally rooted in stability and resilience, but with a capacity to grow and to expand and to promote adoption. Basically, the core will always remain but be basically as simple as possible, almost barely ever changing in the long run. Mm-hmm. And then basically the only thing it focuses on is managing tail risk. So it sort of regulates the entire ecosystem by basically sort of trying to understand what are the things that could cause really serious damage to the whole ecosystem if a sub-DAO does something. And that could be like how sub-DAOs are allowed to take financial risk, but it also could be things like sort of branding risk. So you can't have a sub-DAO sort of like drag down the whole ecosystem, right? By doing something that just is
stupid.
Yeah, like stupid, right? That has caused sort of brand damage, right?
Yeah.
So the core sort of takes care of like the underlying, like it's kind of creating the guardrails, and then the sub-DAOs within those guardrails, they are then free to innovate, free to experiment. Some of them is going to do experiments that will just fail, and the sub-DAO will just die, like it'll just die and just not be able to take off. But this is kind of the key feature of sub-DAOs, that they're allowed to die. Like it's okay if they fail. It's not going to cause the stablecoin to collapse or be at risk because of those guardrails, mm-hmm. right? So they're set up so that it's okay that sub-DAOs can fail, right? And then by allowing failure within the sub-DAOs, by allowing them to sort of have that freedom to experiment, you get this evolutionary process in a sense, right? Where you can learn from the things that fail. You learn, okay, don't do that, right? Mm-hmm. Or maybe do it differently.
I don't think crypto ever learns from its mistakes.
Yeah, it's a really hard problem. I mean, it's generally a really hard problem in decentralized organizations because you often don't have that organizational memory, right? Mm-hmm. So that's another aspect of it that, it's also about like, first you got to have this ability to sort of try things and then see what works and what doesn't work. And then, like a system for sort of making sure you remember what happened, right? You actually learn from that information mm-hmm. you gain. So over time, there could, in theory, be infinite sub-DAOs, but it's kind of like the more that are created, it sort of slows down over time, basically. So it mm-hmm. equilibrates towards some, but it could be, something like in the very long run, there could be 100 sub-DAOs. And then actually, eventually the sub-DAOs themselves can actually make further sub-DAOs. Mm-hmm. Then at that point you get like sort of almost like infinite DAOs. But that's really, really far out.
Yeah, it's trippy to think about, like as Maker becoming. I mean, Maker is a platform on top of Ethereum, and now there's going to be Maker being a platform for other tokens, and then those tokens could have platforms for other tokens. Do you kind of envision this as being like, kind of where the industry is going, instead of making new coins on Solana and new ERC20 tokens all over the world? Is it actually going to be like these kind of tokens on the sub-DAOs? Do you think that's going to be like, I mean, maybe not the majority, because you said maybe 100 of these things, but that'd probably be where the value is, at least.
I mean, it remains to be seen how successful this model is, right? But my belief is basically that, again, it's all about we got to make it easy to use. We got to make it simple. We got to make it so that people feel like it's something they can, they're familiar with, that they can trust with their money, mm-hmm. right? But the thing is, I mean, and this is like the adoption is a central question. Like the tech is there, the real world assets, the collateral, like all of the sort of the back end of how
the safety.
Yeah, like the DeFi works, how crypto works, like that's all there. And what is missing is just the adoption, right? Mm-hmm. And getting it out to people. So that's also fundamentally, sub-DAOs are always about trying to solve the question of how do we get the advantages of DeFi and get it to.
It's got to be like an easy little app on your phone, right? That you could just have everything in one spot, and it looks like the Cash app or something easy like that.
Yeah, but actually, I mean, well, so you're right. But I think actually what's unique and what the sub-DAOs kind of help facilitate is that what's easy for one person what's easy to use for one kind of person might not be easy to use for a different kind of person,
Right.
right? Like people are very different, and there's all these, demographics, like market segments, right? That are different types of users that are into different things, that have different levels of, tech know-how, and classically in crypto, most projects, they're kind of trying to sort of build something that's like one size fits all, right? So they're trying to create a brand that can appeal to everyone and it can sort of scale to everyone through sort of one single monolithic brand. With sub-DAOs, they're sort of much more incentivized to actually just commit to find a market where you can get product market fit, and then just like totally commit to that type of user, right? So that they can sort of tailor every part of their user experience, every part of their product offerings to this particular part of user, right? And be like, which of the DeFi use cases should we expose to our target market, right? So that we make it as comfortable and useful for them as possible. And then there's a funny also kind of flywheel effect where the killer app that we really want to use to gain adoption of what we're doing is token farming itself, right? So it's actually the sub-DAO farming itself. So what that means is you'll have the market segments sort of farming the tokens of the projects that are trying to target these market segments. So you end up having sort of the user providing the input and really the decisions around what does the user want, right? Which I think could really unlock some. I mean, what we might see is that maybe at first the sub-DAOs are just sort of, they provide some yield and that's great, but there could be some kind of like inflection point where suddenly you hit, like you tap into a new market that hasn't been tapped into before, where there actually is really amazing product market fit, and this idea of like we can get the ownership, like we can be a part of building what we want, really appeals to this market, and then you just get this like runaway kind of viral growth, right? And the cool thing with Endgame of how it works with the sub-DAOs is every new sub-DAO is another chance at making this happen, right? So we don't have to kind of commit to one particular bet on how to get mass adoption. Of course, Maker itself and the sort of the core Endgame app, because there will be this sort of the core like simple experience that
The one-stop shop.
yeah, that which is the core itself, right? And this does have to be this kind of brand and app that tries to appeal to everyone, right? While the sub-DAOs can then sort of build on top of that and make something that's much more specialized. And actually, as a part of we're building a new app, we're building a new user experience. As a part of that, we're also rebranding Maker and DAI itself, right? So we actually talk about new stable and new gov token, which is like the new, basically upgraded versions of DAI and MKR that do basically the same thing, but just fit into this new brand universe where everything is about making it easy to use, right? Simple, easy to use, streamlined. You don't have to keep track of like multiple different concepts and projects and exchanges and all this stuff, right? You want like a one-stop shop, right?
I'm really excited about this new governance token. That was also something about DAI. I've always been curious about why it was named that and not just like MUSD or something like that. But yeah, with this new governance token, the rumor, or not the rumor, apparently I think you've confirmed that it's going to be redenominating the MKR token, and so that the new governance token will be something like maybe $1 or a few pennies. And I thought that was pretty interesting, and I'm curious about the motivation behind that. But I read a study, or I heard a study by a company called the TAI, and they did something on a study on unit bias, and they were like, we just saw that basically tokens that were like under $1 just objectively performed better than tokens that were more expensive and all that kind of stuff, which is just kind of interesting that like market participants have that unit bias. And even a lot of the times I'll talk to my friends about crypto and I'm like, oh yeah, like Maker, whatever. $3,000 for a token? Why would you buy this? Like, people don't even understand that you could buy a fraction of a crypto. And like, I finally, have taught my friends that like, just because Bitcoin's $70,000 doesn't mean you can't buy $1 worth of Bitcoin. But tell me a little bit about the motivation behind new governance token and just what you're thinking there.
Yeah. So what's happening is when the in-game launch happens, so we launch a new app, we launch a new brand, we launch new tokens, then MKR holders will be able to upgrade their MKR to a new gov token at a token split of 1 to 24,000, right? So if you have 1 MKR, it becomes 24,000 of the new tokens, right? So
Okay.
it's like it's a really massive split, right? And yeah, it's exactly what you're talking about. I mean, the problem with having a really expensive token is it's like telling people like, if you don't have
You already missed the boat.
tens of thousands of dollars, yeah, like this is not for you, right?
Yeah.
You already missed the boat. Like it has this kind of it's sort of a signal saying this is very exclusive, right?
Yeah.
And yeah, like originally I guess obviously we didn't really think about this in the early days of Maker, right? We were just only thinking about the tech. We didn't think about housing.
You probably never thought this thing would go to $6,000 a token. I mean, that's crazy, right?
Yeah. So we actually kind of, accidentally, and I think unfortunately, a lot of the decisions around the kind of the branding and the sort of the signaling to the users was actually more making it sort of more exclusive, like not inclusive, and telling everyone this is for you, right? We're trying to make it easy for you to understand. We're trying to make it easy for you to use. There was this sort of sense of like crypto is this special technology for the chosen people, right? Which is like, yeah, it attracted a lot of good technical talent to Maker, and it did make the system very secure. But like I keep saying, like it doesn't really matter if you make something super secure and fancy and techy and all that if if it's not really getting adopted.
Right.
So so that's really the goal here, right? That new Gov token will just be much more like it'll be a token that sort of is made for like regular people to be able to easily, you can buy a lot of them easily, so you can feel like you're part of it even if you're not putting down that much money. Mm-hmm. And then also right from the moment that we do Endgame launch, right? So when we launch a new app, the new stable, the new Gov token, the new brand, the redenomination happens, and the new Gov token, there's going to be like 24 billion of them, right? So suddenly mm-hmm. there's lots and lots of these tokens. Also, immediately at the moment of launch, in the new app, this key feature of Endgame will activate, right? Which is the token farming. And so the very first token you can farm with new stable, so the upgraded DAI, right, is the new Gov token.
Nice.
And because of the redenomination, it's really well suited for farming, right? Because you will be farming, and even if you're not farming with that much, like even if you're not saving, like putting that much money into the system to save, you'll still be getting like whole tokens, mm-hmm. Because there's so many of them. So it's easy to sort of give you this experience of like, oh, I earned 10 new Gov token or something, right? And nobody wants to farm like 0.0001 of some token, right? That's just not a good user experience.
It's all psychological.
Yeah.
I'm curious, you referenced in one of the other podcasts that I listened to you on about how you guys are integrating AI into this system to make it better. And I believe the term you referred to was the Atlas. Would you be able to break that down for us?
Yeah, I guess the point of all that is really this idea that to make a system that is immutable and extremely easy to use and scalable, and then also really, really secure and able to adapt to all new threats and risks and so on. To do something like that is very difficult. It requires some very, very advanced sort of structural underlying systems, right, that can make this happen. And but it's got to be easy to use. So you can't you have to sort of both be really, really advanced, but also really simple at the same time. Mm-hmm. And this is actually how all great tech products work like this, right? You don't know how your computer works really, right? You don't even know. No one can explain how the Federal Reserve works either, right? But the dollar, right? It's easy to use.
Yeah.
Right? The dollar bill is amazingly convenient, right? So the Atlas is the system that sort of ties these two things together, right? It makes it so that it can be very, very advanced, but as an end user, you have sort of the guarantee that your user experience is going to be really simple, and it's not going to like fall apart, mm-hmm. because the Atlas is this huge collection of data that basically describes how everything should be, essentially, right? And then provides tools for how can you sort of verify, and processes for how do you verify whether things are as they should be, right? And how do you determine how, something like what should the risk parameter, like how much collateral should you need? Mm-hmm. Do you need to keep it safe, right? How do you check whether it's actually there, right? How do you check whether someone is trying to, sort of hide that or defraud it somehow, like sort of abuse the system, right? And the AI component comes in because, well, now the problem is, now what we've kind of created, if you just look at the atlas itself, it's just a giant data set, right? And then everything that's done in the system, it has to sort of tie back into the existing rules and existing data. And so without AI, what this is basically like a giant bureaucracy, right, with huge amounts of paperwork, right, essentially. And well, that's by itself is not really a scalable solution, as we know from
The
governments.
the paperwork crisis of the 70s and.
Yeah, I mean it's so. But with AI, I mean the thing that AI is so amazingly good at is to take large amounts of data and then bring it to sort of the context of the individual that makes it accessible to them, right? So if you're like a finance specialist, then you should be able to really easily, immediately find like the key parameters that you're interested in and to verify whether is the system safe, or maybe is there some way to improve it, right? To get a better yield or something, right? And AI can sort of help kind of bring you right to the point where this is where the key data is. This is how it works together, right? To sort of quickly bring you up to speed. And if you're just like a totally regular person, I mean, then you might want to just be like, how can I be sure it's safe, right? And then you can be walked through, well, how does stablecoins work? How does collateral work, right? And here's some simple ways to sort of verify that these things are happening as they should. Yeah, and I think in the end, I mean, even no matter how easy you make it to check and verify a system like this, like most people, of course, will never do it anyway, right? But I mean, knowing that it's there and there's a major focus on making this accessible, really, I think will help with user trust, right? And ultimately then adoption and kind of the trust to sort of rely on crypto and rely on blockchain and systems like Maker post Endgame, right? And yeah, I think, I mean, it's like that others can easily verify it, so that you use it like so, and it's sort of there. That it's possible to get all this transparency.
Yeah.
So I mean, that's just a major, like it's a green flag, right? If it's very hard to figure out what's going on, that's a bit of a red flag, right?
It's what led to the banking crisis, right? I mean, nobody knew where everybody's risk was and all these outstanding loans and what's actually in this product. And with Maker, like you said on Maker Burn, you could see everything real time, and with the Atlas, you'll be able to see everything real time. And somebody's going to be out there with programs and running through all the risk, and I'm sure when if there is risk that gets discovered, it'll go viral and people will patch it up, and that's what's so cool about the decentralized community of crypto. And I'm curious, are you guys keeping the name Maker, or is when you go through the whole rebrand, is it going to actually be called something else?
Yeah, it's a complete new brand. So it's really like a full end-to-end rebrand, right? So
I'm gonna miss Maker.
The stable. Well, so actually Maker will. So the MKR token will actually stay, right?
Okay.
So it's not like you are forced to upgrade. This is actually really key. The same thing goes for DAI. So if you just want to use DAI, if you just want to use MKR and that's what you're used to, and you don't want things to change, then it's not like that'll be forced upon you.
It'll have like the same peg or whatever.
Yeah, they're really just like sort of. You can sort of upgrade. Or downgrade, I guess you could say, right? You can convert back and forth seamlessly. But yeah, like I mean, I also think Maker is a great name. Like it has a lot of history, but ultimately it's just like, I mean, like Maker was always about let's make blockchain accessible, and so let's take the value of blockchain and make it into something real for real people, right? And I think with Endgame we are sort of saying. There's no, we are married to nothing, right? Like we will really do whatever it takes to just build a system that is really, really secure and stable, and then that can really grow and be easy to use. And that definitely, like, you can design the brand, like, I mean, yeah, right? I mean, the really good brands are designed sort of end to end around whatever is the purpose of this brand, right? Well, what's the purpose of Maker, and it is to build a system that is incredibly easy to use, but actually taps into the most cutting-edge advanced blockchain technology.
Totally.
Yet abstracts it all away, right? And just gives you the best yield, gives you the best savings experience, gives you the best wallet. So that's I mean, the most the strongest way to really try to convey that and set ourselves up for being able to do that for decades to come is through this like real end-to-end, like sort of designing everything around this goal.
Do you think that the technology that's built on Ethereum right now, is that scalable for that future billion users? Or are you guys taking a multi-chain approach? Are you guys going to build your own chain throughout the rebrand? How does that kind of work from a base layer perspective?
So actually, like at the very late stages of Endgame. So Endgame is a process that's going to take many, many years. It sort of has to take as long as it needs, right? So because of the Endgame aspect, that once it's done, it's done. Like you can't, then it'll be sort of locked in, and you will not be able to make further changes, right? And then one of the things that we identified is needed at sort of when you really think very long term and think very large scale is that there has to be like a native blockchain for the system to sort of run the system's backends, basically for the core and for the sub-DAOs. And then also potentially to be sort of an ecosystem hub, right? Although that is not necessary. It could just be like a backend blockchain. So I've been looking into like all, I mean, so like out of curiosity really, because current is not really relevant in the short run at all, right? We're gonna really wait and see where the technology evolves, and then figure out what's the right choice to pick for this L1 native backend. And well, and also one thing that's really important to point out is that by creating this this like native L1 to run the backend of the endgame system of the sub-DAOs and the core, it doesn't mean that Maker is like leaving Ethereum. So all the stuff that's on Ethereum now will remain on Ethereum. In fact, it will grow big time, right? Because Ethereum is where the users are, and the whole thing is about let's make it easier to use, right? Let's make it accessible, right? So, but it's like the sub-DAOs will kind of take over the infrastructure on Ethereum because they can just run it more flexibly and better and more efficiently, and then grow it. I mean, to the L2s, but also we want to go. I mean, like multi-chain, right? It's like so multi-chain is like a key part of the strategy and part of the end game philosophy, right? Because you got to meet the users where they are. You got to make it easy to use. Users are very different, right? They have different needs. Like there's not one chain that serves all users' needs, right? So you have to figure out what sub-DAOs are suitable for what demographics and markets, and then make sure that they can go to those markets and they can bridge to those chains and figure out how to make the offerings available as sort of close and as easy in a way that's as easy as possible for the user.
Awesome. And so in terms of timeline, I know you said this is going to be a years-long thing. When can people kind of expect for this all to start kicking off?
Yeah, so launch season, as we call it, which is really this.
Launch season, baby.
Yeah, launch season, right? So it's I guess it's a really exciting moment where now we've been working on this now for 2 years in Maker, right? So it's like we've talked a lot about Endgame, and we've talked, but launch season is when things actually start to ship. And it's sort of all the things that have been prepared will really like converge into a series of major releases that'll happen over, basically happen over several months. And it's coming, basically later this year, right? It's coming in a couple of months.
Awesome.
And well, so as I said earlier, right? So it starts with the app itself. So you get the new brand, you get the new user experience. You can start saving and growing your money, and it's going to be super easy to use. There will be token farming right from the launch, right, with the new Gov token. And then the sort of the big follow-up is spark farming that'll activate, right? And with spark farming, that's kind of the key. That's actually the real major launch of launch season. And that's because, first of all, of course, everyone, like sub-DAOs, that's the whole thing that everyone's excited about. That's like the killer feature. But also, that'll also be happening with multi-chain support. So that's when we can really sort of open the floodgates, right, to regular people that can use it at very low fees, right, on initially in L2s. And then from there, it'll just keep spreading, and like the multi-chain support should just continue to expand and grow. Because once we unleash the sub-DAOs, the level of kind of flexibility of potential for growing and tapping into new markets will increase dramatically.
Is there anything that I didn't ask about Endgame or Maker that I should have, or that we should highlight?
I think we actually covered it pretty well. I mean, of course, there's like endless rabbit holes to talk about, and
Totally.
you can pick any of the topics of Endgame, and it will, you can just like endlessly dive deep, and it's like a fractal sort of approach to how to build the ultimate DeFi system, right? And it needs to be that because of this requirement that it has to be a single immutable solution, right? So it's sort of endlessly complex the more you sort of dive into it. But then if you zoom out, it's actually pretty simple. It's the ultimate money app. It's a place that's easy to use where you can save and grow your money. And then if that's not enough, if you want something more exciting, you can farm sub-DAOs, right? Which is a really unique killer feature, right? That we hope will make crypto even more exciting. But also in a way where you can't lose your money and we can't create these bad experiences that can turn normal people off.
Yeah, no more Lunas, no more FTXs. Well, Rune, one of the last questions I like to kind of ask everybody who comes on the show is just like outside of anything that you're building or like affiliated with in the crypto space, what really excites you? What are you looking at and like, damn, that's cool, that's innovative, that's pushing the industry that we both know and love really far forward?
So I think like this, I feel like this answer is a little bit cliche almost, but I think I've only recently gotten into zero knowledge computation and sort of the use cases of zero knowledge to blockchain. I mean, I feel like it's like a meme that's been going for 10 years, right? So the whole time Maker has been happening, people have been talking about zero knowledge and being sort of all excited about it, and I've just been like, well, I don't understand it, so I don't understand why they're so excited. But now I finally, after all these years, I actually started looking into it. And it finally sort of makes sense to me just how monumental a shift it will be to switch to sort of really, zero knowledge technology based applications and systems in blockchain. And I think that's really exciting because it starts to feel like it's not technology anymore. It starts to feel like magic, like it's getting so advanced, and the things you'll be able to do, the scalability you get with zero knowledge computation is it's pretty crazy that it's even possible, I think.
Awesome. Well, hey, how can people follow along with the Endgame story? Where's the best resources that we could direct folks to?
Well, you can follow me on Twitter at Rune Kek, Rune Kek.
Nice.
On Twitter, and then there's the MakerDAO, like at MakerDAO account. I think that is Twitter is or X or whatever it's called nowadays is the best place to follow us for sure.
Awesome. All right. Well, everybody, hope you guys enjoyed that show with Rune Christensen, co-founder of MakerDAO. Follow along with the story of Endgame. Thanks so much for joining us.
Thanks for having me.